Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Four Lads Rangers Monday Night Podcast. My name is Stevie Clifford. I'm joined by Kenny Stewart and Andrew Stewart. Lads, good evening. Andrew, how are you? You well?
I'm good, yeah. Getting through the Monday blues, but happy to be on tonight and chat the Jazz with you.
Yeah, you've kind of gate crashed us a wee bit because we didn't expect you to be on. It's pre-season. I haven't really asked anybody who would like to come on or anything. Scotland were playing and things. I've just let everybody chill. Kenny and I were doing it, but nice to be joined by Andrew. As Andrew said, nice to add some hair to the pod. Thanks, mate. Really appreciate that. Kenny, good evening, mate. How are you?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, busy day at work, so back home, got my dinner, good to go. Looking forward to it. Should be good fun.
Yeah, and look, there's so many rumours, isn't there? There's so many rumours. I think we should start first. A wee bit of kind of, I wouldn't say a breaking rumour or anything, but reports over in Greece that Ike Athens are in for Cyril Dessers. Um, Andrew, what do you think? Where are you on a guy that scored 50 goals um, over the course of 2 seasons, but still has a majority of doubters amongst the fan base? How do you feel about Cyril Dessers? And what sort, if we were to contemplate a sale, where are you, and what's it kind of price you would sell him for?
I'm in the the camp of if there's interest and the money is right for the club and their estimation of how much Cyril is worth, and if they have other people in the pipeline, if we're talking about a couple of strikers being linked, which we'll speak of tonight, if that can help us get those names in, who are obviously going to be younger, obviously Cyril, I don't want to say he's over the hill by any stretch of the imagination, because I think that's the kind of the youngsters football manager, anything past 28 and the player's finished kind of nonsense. Um, a guy who is experienced compared to some of the rest of the squad, and if you are going to bring in one of those youngsters, Turkmen for example, you're going to need to have somebody that can lean on to help him through, being just new to the country. He's been here before. We have the luxury of being able to say, no, Sergio has scored these amount of goals for us. He's played in the big games, played in Europe for us. He's an asset, which is good to have because we can't be having players leaving on free transfers like we did previously with Alfie, for example. Um, I think we just need to be solid in our estimation. I couldn't tell you an estimation because I'm trying to think of how many how many goals does it take to kind of outweigh the team's perspective of he is an older player. I think we should stand firm. Um, yeah, I'm just worried the fact we spent like 6 million on Danilo. That's a worrying one. If you can recoup the majority of that from a Dessers sale and keep some of I don't know, the debate about Danilo for kicking that down the road, I think you'd be happy with that. Especially adding the Nigeria duty, I think he's doing really well. He's got his critics, but he's certainly an asset that we can start to, when the price is right, move on.
Kenny, an asset, Cyril Dessers. I think I would agree with that in terms of those that do have a monetary value. Cyril certainly got one. If interest is real, what's your opinion on Cyril Dessers? Where does he land in the for sale bracket, and what kind of money would you be looking for?
Oh, he is for sale. And personally, I would be looking at somewhere at 4 or 5 million quid. I think that's reasonable for a guy that's scored the best part of 30 goals this season, including goals for Nigeria, as Andrew said, and got 2 years left in his contract. I don't think he's ever scored as many goals as he had, so he's probably in the form of his life in terms of goal scoring. So, yeah, listen, the Greek clubs will pay plenty of money. So, yeah, that's what I would be looking at. Yeah, I don't think he's a Russell Martin type player. I said this last week. I genuinely don't. I think it's in terms of the high press and stuff like that. We've seen Cyril Dessers struggle with triggering a press and really getting it right. So we need a new team, Stevie. I'd listen to offers for just about everybody. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. And if we're getting good money, then he'll go. I think there's no doubt in that. If if that's what he wants to do.
Right, so here's my opinion on it. Cyril Dessers has scored 50 goals in a really poor Rangers team over the last couple of seasons. It's 5 million for me minimum. I know he's coming up for 31, but I think also with Cyril, there's some baggage. I think we talk a lot about selling Nico Raskin at his top value. Well, I think Cyril Dessers is at his top value now. I think he's at the right age. I think he's had good seasons, and I think that now's the time to sell. But like you said, Kenny, there's not too many that you wouldn't sell in this first team squad. So Cyril is only getting talked about because it is rumoured, and this is a new kind of story that's emerging tonight. I think that Cyril was really good under Barry Ferguson. I think he changed the way he was, and I think he was really good. Scored in all 5 post-match split games. So, but for me, here's the biggest problem I've got. Okay, and people might disagree, and that's okay. I don't mind that. It's only my opinion. Cyril Dessers can't play in a Russell Martin team because I don't think he presses, and I don't think he holds and wins fouls, and I also don't think he fouls at the right time to be the type of player that Russell Martin needs as a focal point in his team. I don't think he holds the ball up well enough. I don't think he gets others involved well enough. I think he's a 9, an out-and-out 9, which maybe Barry's turned him more and more into. By the way, he can finish. I know he misses chances. I know he can, but every 9 does. He can finish. You look at people saying he can't finish and stuff like that. Look at Old Trafford. Look at his finishes against Celtic and that one touch and little dink finish that he done. So I don't get the argument that he can't finish. I think he's inconsistent, probably is where I would say at times. But I don't think Cyril offers enough to be part of Russell Martin's squad. And that is, Andrew, the biggest reason of why I would cash him in. If we're going to have a 9 in a Russell Martin squad, then he's got to press. He's got to be able to bring others in. He's got to win fouls, hold it up. I'm sorry, I don't see Cyril Dessers being that type of player because he hasn't been able to prove that before.
I think I was watching one of the tactical masterclass videos with Russell Martin, and he was discussing that he had, I think, Michael Obafemi when he was at Swansea, and they saying that Obafemi was perfect for the way he wanted him to play because he was athletic, he was going to get up and he was going to hassle the centre backs when they were on the ball. He was also going to do the dirty stuff of the game, track back, get rough and tumble, get those fouls, the correct fouls. I think that athletic build for a striker is not one that I can see Cyril linked with. I think at times he does cover a lot of ground, but I think you probably would want to reinvest with Cyril. I think, as Craig said, I'm not going to say we go Moneyball, but it's similar to that in the way that if you're going to get peak value for a player, you'd be silly not to take it then because you're going to waste that if you hold them on for longer, especially with the age of the player. Obviously, I'm not saying Cyril was past it by any stretch of the imagination. I think as you said, his numbers post-split were good. And he on his day he can finish any chance. Just you want to hope it is his day. I think now a couple of good seasons, as you said, the numbers are really good from the outside looking in. Someone that doesn't maybe watch every single game. I think this is the perfect time to sell, reinvest that money into players that will get you the next 2-3 years, and then you repeat the process because this is what we need to do. We need to be not a wheeling and dealing, but picking the right players, the right profile of players, the right price points, developing them, giving them the platform to grow domestically and in the European competitions, and then reinvest again. You sell them for a price point, you reinvest in the next player that comes in to fill that void.
Yeah, there's a lot of people talking about Danilo in the comments, Kenny and Eagleman. Look, I think out of the 3 of them, Dessers is the one that's attracting attention because of the season he's had. None of us here are going to sit and say if somebody come in with a big offer for Danilo, we're not going to sell. We would sell and reinvest because Danny, you would say, has it been available or enough or whatever you want to argue. I think that's fair, but the question is about Cyril Dessers, and Kenny, I think history will probably be kinder to Cyril Dessers than it is in the moment. Probably a bit like James Tavernier. His stats are good. It's the eye test at times it's failed and probably let us down. But this goes along to change it slightly. Here's what I think also is a big factor. Fans have got a real clamour to have a real clean, fresh, try at this season. And that includes Cyril, it includes Tav, it includes Jack Butland and people in there, even John Suter and other players like that to an extent. I think Cyril Dessers maybe falls into the bracket of there's too much baggage with him on certain performances, that no matter how many goals he scores, as soon as he misses one, people will go, that's what you're going to get with Cyril Dessers, he's not good enough. Is that another factor to bring into this, or another problem that fans might have in their head, that no matter what he does, similar to others, no matter what he does, he's gone in their eyes and they want change? Do you think that's relevant?
I think it's fair. I think it's relevant because it's a fact. We've had Cyril Dessers at the club for 2 years, and he's one of those players that you look at and you say, statistically, 50 goals in 2 seasons, 51 goals, I think it was, is a great return. But the simple fact is that in the big moments, he's kind of let us down a little bit. And it's just, it's human nature to a certain degree where our fans are at. Years and years and years of failure. There's no other way of getting round that. And regardless to whether it's fair or not, guys like Cyril Dessers, who is your focal point up front, has a responsibility for that. He's a senior player. James Tavernier is also the same. He's a senior player. He's our captain. They have a responsibility as senior players. And the buck stops with them to a certain degree in the eyes of the supporters. I'm not saying that's necessarily true, but in the eyes of the supporters, I think that's exactly where we're at. And that's why people want a clean slate, if you like. They want to wipe the board clean and just get on with it. And I would actually look at this and say that if Cyril Dessers goes, and say you do get the £5 million, £6 million for him, and you reinvest that in the Israeli kid Turgeman that we're going to talk about, that's great investment. That is putting your money kind of where your mouth is, looking at a boy with great potential, investing in it. And it would also perhaps looking at this, you would say that somebody like Lawrence Shanklin might well come in. And I'm not saying it will be Lawrence Shanklin, but it would be somebody like that on a free that you can get at the right price for that experience that can come in. And you've got, as Andrew had said, we're going to have to wheel and deal. Whether it sounds like a wheel and deal, we're going to have to. And that squad needs really reshaped. And things like that might be on everybody's mind, that if you're getting that kind of money for a player at that kind of age, despite the return that we've had on him over the last couple of years, it makes perfect business sense to get that deal done if that's where we're at that kind of value. That's what I would be looking at. You've got Kevin Thirlwell just in the door. He's going to look at that and think that's a good return. When he's literally in the process of bringing new guys like Dan Purdy in and saying, right, this is the budget, this is what we've got, what do we want to do? And talk to Russell Martin. And there is a real process about to happen, Stevie. That's what I would say. So for me, whether we like it or not, the senior players at the football club have that weight of responsibility on their shoulders, Stevie, and that's kind of where I'm at with it, with all of them, in truth.
Scott Kearney says, well, sell Raskin as well, then yeah. I don't have a problem with this. This isn't a favouritism thing for me. If Nico Raskin, we get a peak bid for him where we want it to be, he's a Belgian international, maybe if he doesn't sell his contract, now's the prime time to sell Nico Raskin. I will not get an argument from anyone you will not get an argument from me on that at all, Scott. This isn't a Cyril Dessers putting him out and we want rid of him. This is a topic of conversation because it's came up today. We would have the same conversation about Danilo. If somebody came in and said, here's your money back from Danilo, every single person on this panel tonight would go, okay, thanks, Danny. Thanks for your time. And I love Danny. I really do. I think he's great. I would be happy to get that money back. Nico Raskin, I love Nico. Would want Nico to stay, but I would absolutely want the top dollar for him. So that's a reason of discussion. One thing I'm going to say as well, and this is quite funny because I see his name a lot in the conversation as well. Hi Ella, we see your we see your comments as well. Everybody, thank you. Lawrence Shankland. I'm a big Lawrence Shankland fan. I've said it for ages, but this has changed for me now. I don't think Lawrence Shankland is a Russell Martin type of player. Lawrence Shankland is a poacher, a 9. Maybe could sit deeper at sometimes in Hearts. I don't really think that's worked for him this season. He lacks that kind of pace and mobility to go and press the way that Russell Martin plays. So I've went from being really pro Lawrence Shankland at Rangers to not being. And people are going to say, Stevie, come on, you're at it or whatever. That's just the way I feel about it now. I don't think Russell Martin would take a Lawrence Shankland kind of player. And I also think that Danilo is the 9 in that mould if we were to play that way, and I don't think we do. So Lawrence Shankland for me as well, Andrew. I think it changes. I don't think that's the kind of striker we need.
I don't think the word mobile has been thrown around when you discuss Lawrence Shankland at his best of seasons. I mean, he's a finisher. He's a ruthless finisher on his day. I take your point about Danilo. I think Danny can work a few roles to the Russell Martin kind of style. I was talking the same kind of discussion on Obafemi at Swansea. Joe Perreault went from being the striker to being just behind the striker. And I think Danny could do that as well, because he is a creative player. I think he's good on the ball. He's not just the put the ball in the back of the net kind of striker. I think he's technically really solid. You can see that with his link-up play, even just with Cherny alone last season. I think those two worked well together. I think him and Dessers worked well together, but this is at times last season. That's going to change, obviously. There's more likeliness, in my opinion, you get Danilo firing and being a success at Rangers in this system, which we predict Martin will play, than you would with Dessers, in my opinion. I think the lack of mobility, it's going against Dessers, it goes against Shankland. I think you need a mixture of rough and tumble, but you also need athleticism. And I think that goes against Cyril and it goes against Shankland. I think both of them also don't fit the age bracket as well. I think we do need to go younger, potentially, in that area. If you're going to get rid of a Cyril, you may as well go younger. It puts a bit of responsibility on Danilo if you aren't going to bring in an experienced player like a Shankland. I've seen Vardy's name getting chucked in the comments. So there's your experience, but there's half your wage bill gone. So I'd maybe steer clear of that one. But I think, we need athleticism. That's the main word. And I see it for a number of the positions in a Martin team. Just with the style of play, we need the extra athleticism, which is why pre-season is going to be such an important thing for the club. We need to be fit. We can't be blowing out the backside of 60 minutes, 70 minutes. We need to go until the end of the game, first whistle to last whistle. If you're going to be a pressing team, you can't half-ass it. You need to be on it, fit, and ready to cover the yards. And if you don't, you get found out. It's just the brutality of trying to be a high-pressing football team.
Before we talk about players that are linked, Che Adams did just score a hat-trick for Scotland. It was kind of like, I watched that game and it was kind of like in FIFA where you haven't won a couple of games and then you just play a one-star team just to get your morale up a wee bit. And if you haven't scored, sometimes in FIFA you go 3-4 games and you can't hit the back of the net at all. So you have to play a duff team just to remember how to score. I think that was kind of like that. But I really like Che Adams, by the way. If Che Adams could come to Rangers, I would take that in a heartbeat. And it might be controversial for some people, but I think he's excellent as a that type of player in Russell Martin. I think he scored 18 goals in the season for Southampton under Russell Martin. I would take him every day of the week, and that may be controversial for some. But what I do like, a couple of players that have been linked, and welcome to the section where Stevie gets to butcher players' names. Dan Turjaman, 21 years old, Maccabi Tel Aviv and Israel striker. Apparently a £4 million bid rejected for him. Also Matija Frajan, 22 years old, Croatian striker. We all love Croatian strikers at Rangers, playing in Belgium for Westerlo. 14 goals and 41 appearances. So there you go, straight away, 21, 22. I must admit, when you're about to, I don't know anything about these guys other than the research I've done, which is typical Stevie, kind of half-arsed, watch some YouTube clips, etc. But the YouTube clips of Turgeman, Andrew, this boy looks good, 2-footed, can find lots of... It actually reminded me a wee bit of the boy that we were linked with for ages last summer, and that never happened. So this boy, I must admit, I've not seen a lot of Frijan, or Frigan, however you pronounce that, Croatian lad. I did see him score one on X last night, which looked one clip of him, and it looked pretty decent. But I'm kind of... See how you get exciting players, and there's a couple of them linked. I think Turgeman's up there with, if we were to get him, that would be a really, really exciting move for me, just based on what I've seen. I'm no expert, not at all. I can't say that I've watched them, but research-wise, the odd YouTube clip and compilation and things like that, this boy looks pretty good. What do you think?
As I said, I can't say I'm an avid follower of Maccabi Tel Aviv. I don't get those games on Viaplay or Premier Sports, to be honest. But I think, as you said, you do as always, you look at the YouTube highlights, the boy looks good, but I think it's the right profile for the player. You're talking at 21, he's already had some appearances for his international team. He'll be looking for a bigger spotlight to go and do his work, which is put the ball in the back of the net. And if it leads us to winning things, and by all means, it's a perfect combo. I think it would be great to get him. I think he's, as you said, the highlights are great. I think I'd like to see this one be a priority early doors to get something new, something fresh up front. To be honest, though, you're talking priorities in terms of signings. Where does the striker kind of land at that point in time? Is the Dessers conversation, is that further along than we think it is? Are we avidly trying to push him out the door? In that case, obviously, the striker then does take precedence because, Danilo with his injury record, Igaman will be, he'll be in the conversation as well for potentially moves to bigger clubs. A nice amount of money will be in discussions potentially. So does that then escalate the striker talk over a centre back? Or does it escalate it over another midfielder? But I really like him. I really like Dor. I think he could be a player that we can get behind. I like, similar to Antonio Cholak, who had, I think, a really bad shake at the club. I think he was a lot better. I think you look back at some of the goals he scored, a real good, just, you get the ball to him, he puts the ball in the net. I really think he could be a star at Rangers. But they just need to see where this goes, because it was 4 million. Again, where's the priorities going to lead in terms of the summer window? Because if the Dessers move doesn't really happen, then that's going to be 4 million extra at least. 5 if they knock back 4, 6 potentially if they knock back 4. Are you going to need to prioritise a centre back? I think that's where you probably need to look first and foremost.
Interesting. This will probably hurt you, Andrew, but I could make Matondo look good on a YouTube clip. I see
he does it himself. He does it himself. Matondo looks good himself.
That's really not true. But if you could make him look good in a YouTube clip, please do it and send it to potential buyers. That would be wonderful. Thank you very much. I see Mashi Adams' comment has went down really, really well, so I'm glad of that. Kenny, what do you make of the links we've had to the new strikers? It certainly tells you something. If these things are real, because we never know how much it is, it's all rumor. But guys of that age, it's an interesting one, I think.
Yeah, it is. And the Israeli market is one of those that you will get an odd diamond in the rough, so to speak, because it's not the greatest of leagues are in, lad. Let's not bull s about it, But what you can say about this boy is that the Israeli national side's a decent enough side, and he's slotted right in there really, really well. And the videos, that's all I can go on is the YouTube footage. He's a big, strong, technical, athletic, powerful guy that seems to know exactly what he's doing in front of goal. And at that kind of price for that kind of talent, if you can bring him here, and this is the whole point of bringing in a head coach, is that you're going to improve these players. So if you can come in and improve, then it's a kind of no-brainer, because he's coming to a higher level of football. He's going to play European football at a higher level again than he has been doing. He would no doubt be keeping his place in an international team if he's scoring goals for us. It's an asset instantly. And that's where I'm kind of at when you look at the age and the profile of the guys that we're looking at and where they'd be coming from. I'm kind of all for that, because it just, and I understand people could say that we've bought for or worked in the Belgian market before. This seems slightly different. This in regard to the what it is they're actually looking for, and I don't know anything about the Croatian boy at all. I have to be honest. I'm just going on the rumour. I don't know much about him at all, and it'll be interesting to see what comes of it, Stevie, because as you say, that it is looking at the age of these guys, and if Cyril Dessers goes, then Danilo would be our most experienced striker, and who's had an absolute torrid 18 months with injuries. So that kind of, you've got to concern yourself with that, haven't you? Is Danilo the guy that's going to be able to start that press and stuff like that as well? So I've got a funny feeling that the way he plays, I think he'll want lots and lots of forward players, because I don't believe for a minute that you're going to start with two wingers and a number 9 and make these guys play that high press for 90 minutes twice a week. So he's going to need 7 or 8 striking, in that strike force, Stevie. So I would expect lots and lots of changes in there. And yeah, the Israeli boys, exciting looking. That's what I would say.
Andrew mentioned that centre backs were his priority, and it's funny because goalkeeper, central defence, left back, right back, need a midfielder, a 6, and we need wingers. I can live with Cyril Dessers for the moment. I'm talking about priority, like coming in straight away. And something, I really think we need wingers. Like, as a matter of urgency. We have Oscar Cortez, who nobody knows anything about. He started to look good, and then we haven't seen him since. Barry basically slated him, in the press conferences and things, and said he sees them in training, and that's why they're not playing. So that's really difficult. One player that does excite me, and I like the sound of him, is Poku, who's a right winger at Peterborough. Now he's heavily sought after. 20 goal contributions, 12 goals and 8 assists in 27 League One appearances last season. He's understood to be wanted by Birmingham City and has suitors in France and Germany. He's a right winger, but left-footed. Was part of the side that defeated Birmingham at Wembley last season to retain the EFL trophy. He's an exciting player. He's the kind of player that I think we need in our squad and as part of our first team in and out. He's the right age. He's got the right, he knows the way to go. And that being able to cut in, I think, will suit us. Young, athletic type player. We need 4 wingers. And I don't think that's unfair. I don't know where Oscar Cortez is and where he's going to fit in all this. I really don't. Poku, for me, is a really interesting one. Andrew, Kenny, let's get your thoughts on him.
I think you're right. I think I've just banged on about athleticism for the opening half hour of the pod, so I think Poku is athletic. I think he covers ground. It's a decent goal return and he's in goal involvements. I think it's the other suitors that will be an issue for us. I'm not going to say that we aren't financially backed nowadays, but we are. But I think we'll need to. I don't want to say we need to sell it to him, but does he have another interesting opportunity? Does he have a crack at the big time down south? Where does he see his development? Does he want to come up to Glasgow, come to Rangers, put himself on the European stage? Does he feel that'll be the best move for him? I'd suggest for a player his age, he's still young, 23. I think you take a stint up here, put yourself in that European stage, and the eyes will turn. We had some big games in Europe this season against big teams. People take notice, and Rangers go on wins in Europe. We play really good football in Europe. Is that the best move for him? I'd suggest it's probably one of the better moves that have been linked. So, if it works for him, it works for me. Because I think you're right. In terms of also the free agents chat as well, as a guy that's at a club, by all accounts, he's been these free contracts, pre-contracts, free agents, which we need to take advantage of. Can't be spending $6 million per head. If you can get those players in on frees that fit, financially, then by all means we need to jump at it.
Now we say free. He is out of contract. We'll have to pay a cross-border fee, which could be similar to what we paid for Aribo Kenny. And the other thing is as well, players from England aren't free. You've seen Kieran Dowell come here. I don't think it's a secret that Kieran Dowell's on a really big wage, 25, 30 grand, rumoured to be. I think we would have to pay this young lad similar, but obviously a cross-border fee, which could be, anywhere up to £1 million or so. It's normally not that much. That wage thing would need to be taken into consideration. But if this boy comes up here and does a similar season, then worth the gamble, perhaps.
On the face of it, absolutely. And I've seen a little bit of the boy actually, and he's a good player. He is. He's tricky. He's pacey. I think he's got 20. I think it's 20 goal contributions in the last season there. League One is not the greatest level, but it's a decent level of football. Again, it's a step up, and if you're looking at paying that kind of money, I wouldn't be. I'd be a wee bit wary of spending 25, 30 grand a week on the kid. And if he's going to get that elsewhere, then, we need 4 wingers. You've just said it yourself, Stevie. And if you're paying them all, there's 120 grand a week for wingers. It's $500,000, 6 million a year on wingers alone, mate. It's an awful lot of money if you would do that. So this is another one, though, that I would look at and say that what you're buying is bags and bags of potential, or signing bags of potential, I should say. And that's where you have to be sensible about it and say that if you've got somebody that on that side and they're going to play, the simple fact is, Stevie, we're going to play 50, 60 games every season. You can't expect guys to play this high press 60 times a season, twice a week, all the way through it. So you're going to have to rotate a lot of these guys a lot. They're going to do 60 minutes and out. Somebody else is coming in for half an hour. So the boy's going to get lots of game time. And if Russell Martin has identified the boy, because he'll know that league very, very well, and said that I want him because he'll fit right into what I'm trying to do, then you've got a decision to make on that, because I'm a wee bit worried about you saying that kind of money for a kid. But I'm frugal with things like that, though. So I'm genuinely a wee bit worried about that, though, that if he was to be looking for 30 grand a week, I don't know, that would scare me off a little bit, mate.
Bill makes an interesting point. I've alluded to this slightly as well. I get a feeling there will be 2 parts to this window. He needs a decent 11 for qualifiers, but depending on the outcome, may see what else we do. I think that's fair. I think you might see players start, and I've said this as well in the European game, that he doesn't necessarily see here by September time. So I don't think that's an unfair comment, Bill, at all. I think it's a really good contribution, actually. A few more players that have been linked talk through them. Vicente Pizarro, who I called Sanchez this morning on Rangers Review. Chile number 6 plays for Colo Colo, rumoured to have a release clause, I think, of £3 million. We need that pivot. It's how Russell Martin plays. I don't think we have one. You look at Bailey Rice. I would like to see Bailey Rice back somebody up and get some good game time. And then also been linked with Agustin Sandes, Argentine left back, plays for Rosario Central, product of Boca Juniors Academy. We've also been linked with Harry Toffolo, who's been I think Glasgow World linked him today, saying that Rangers would be interesting because he's now free and available for Nottingham Forest. Whether or not that's going to be just an easy link because he used to play with Russell or play for Russell Martin, so we don't know about that one really. And then there's Flynn Downs, defensive midfielder playing for Southampton. I said he was an attack. I got him mixed up this morning as well. I shouldn't have stayed up last night watching John Wick because I was all over the place this morning on Rangers Review. He's a sitting number 6, but he would cost 10, 12 million. Realistically, I'm not sure that we are in that market. I really don't think we are. It would be some sign of intent, that's for sure, but I really don't see that as being realistic. So a couple of extra names in there, guys. We're going to be 100 players, aren't we, in the coming weeks? Half of them will be false. Any thoughts on some of the guys I mentioned, Andrew? Maybe Downs is a good place to kind of focus on. We don't know much about Sandes or, just to get his name, Pizarro, just to make sure I'm completely right. Not Sanchez, Stevie had an error this morning. But what do you think of Downs? I don't see that as being realistic.
The price is worrying. I don't think we get near that. I'd like Flynn Downs. I think, as you said, we could use a pivot. I think he could fit in that. I think Russell Martin had quoted him as being kind of like a 4 for him in the way that they played with Matt Grimes at Swansea, and the two of them kind of switched. So Grimes would be ahead of Downs, and Downs would work in with the 3 back that he had there. Your issue is, does he keep a 3 back at Rangers? This is all this, or what he sees as his team being at Rangers can be completely different to what he's done before. He has been quite open and honest about his time away from the game to pick up things that he maybe didn't have at the time, and make some learnings. So he could have a completely different vision on how he wants to see Rangers play. So price will be an issue there. You would probably need Flynn to move some parts and say, I really want to play for this manager, because by all accounts, the relationship between the two seems to be quite strong. The manager and the player. Price will be the difficult one for us. Again, massive statement of intent if they were to do so. But if to take that theoretical 20 million number, which I know is worth forgetting about, because you're no point in counting the 1s, the 2s, the 3 millions against this 20. There's no point in doing so. It would be quite a large chunk of it if you were to look at it like that. The 2 other young players you said, to the left back, obviously coming through Boca Juniors, that's a team that wants to win things. Same with, I make the argument for River Plate. I like that kind of rivalry, the Boca Juniors River Plate Super Classico. These teams and these players want to be winners. Rosario Central is a good place to kind of develop. I think there's been some decent times in that club. Pizarro being at Colo Colo is another Libertadores team from off the top of my head. So again, a decent quality for South America. But it's the profiles again. I go back to saying about the profiles the guys we're linked to. These are the players that the good scouting can provide. A release clause of 3 million for a youngster that's playing in what the South American Europa League is. It's pretty decent, I'd say, for you're buying bags of potential there. So again, the profiles are right. It's just about whittling it down, which is making it, we've got European qualifiers to play, so we need to hurry up, boys.
Yeah, that's for sure. Just a wee thank you to Gaz Jones, who's become a YouTube member as well. A huge thank you to Craig Gallagher, who's gifted 1 podcast membership as well. Really appreciate all our members' support. I'll talk about that a wee bit at the end as well, but just to bring them up while they are doing those things, we really appreciate the support. Somebody talking about Ramsdale, I think that's a nonsense, and a couple of reasons. I wouldn't want Ramsdale at Rangers, and the reason being is because he's very publicly talked about being unable to concentrate for games and things like that. I remember watching him at Old Trafford when Diallo scored a hat-trick, and he was wandering about, and Diallo more or less just rolled one in because he wasn't playing. So I don't fancy Ramsdale in the slightest. And by the way, we're not financially in that position anyway. I think he's been linked with massive moves and things like that. You're going to get a lot of names that are just flung about, and I don't think that's realistic in the slightest. And personally, Ramsdale, not for me. But moving on, Kenny, of the players that are linked out, we've had links already for Robin Proper, Ross McCausland, Ridvan Yilmaz, Mohamed Diamande. In all honesty, Mohamed Diamande is the only one I would really be troubled with leaving. I think he's a boy that can be experienced. But again, if the price is right, like you said before, do you have any issues with anyone that might be rumoured to be leaving? I doubt you will with Proper, Yilmaz, Ross McCausland, but any in that you would worry about?
No, not at all. For me, it's one of these situations where us as a football club, we are at a watershed. This is a massive watershed moment. We have to be very, very brave as a football club here. And what we've been doing over the last few years doesn't work, Stevie. It hasn't worked. We know it hasn't worked. The people that have just come in and bought our football club know it hasn't worked. The people that have taken over the football department are fully aware that none of this has worked. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if you're looking at a number of these players have kind of been told already. They're maybe not been told to leave, but they've been told you won't be a first pick next season. I genuinely do think that I think there's been a number of words, between the people that are running our football club and agents and the players themselves, and said, look, it might be better for you to look because you're not going to be particularly in the manager's plans. And for me, the boy Ridvan Yilmaz has, to me, should go because he's just frustrated the bejesus out of me since the day he got here. Injured so often, it kind of bamboozles me. He's just injured. It's always one of these things as well with him that, with all respect to the boy, but he'll be out for 3 weeks and he's out for 3 months all the time. You just never see him. And that frustrates me. But no, to be honest, none of the rest of them overly concern me, apart from Diamande. If Diamande was open to leaving Rangers, then that's fine. But you pay top dollar for the boy. I would be looking at 10, 12 million as your starting point, and your absolute starting point, with add-ons, with clauses. And I think you get it as well, because he's if you look at his European performances in particular, he's been pretty outstanding, and he'd have caught the eye. I remember it was at the Spurs game, I think it was, where he was he was outstanding. So he'd have caught the eye down south, because most people were watching that game that night. So in general, there's 3 or 4 that I'd like to keep in the squad, and the rest are what I would say could well be collateral damage, and you can move them all on. And it allows you to build a new squad, Stevie, because we're now about to hit silly season. We know that in terms of rumours and stuff like that. We're fully aware that a lot of this stuff will potentially just be rumour. But with the guys that are leaving, I'm not quite so sure it would be rumour, because, as I say, I've just got that sneaky feeling that a few of them have maybe been told. I don't know what you think, but that's kind of where it is, sadly, for a few of these players. They've just failed over and over again. So, time to go.
Barry openly talked about players wanting to leave, and when you consider, Andrew, like Robin Proper, if these reports in Holland are true that he's more or less almost back home, then I would say that that's been in the pipeline for quite a while. I have long since spoke about on Rangers Review and on this podcast that Robin Proper would return, or at least leave Rangers this summer, so it doesn't come as a surprise to me, that's for sure. What I wanted to talk about a wee bit is Diamande. Diamande, here's where I kind of am with our midfield. Raskin for me starts. We need a 6. Diamande for me starts, but not every single game. I think he's inconsistent, and I think having proper competition in there could be really good for him. I would like to see us sign another attacking midfielder that could come in and dovetail with him. And then that allows Barron to back up Raskin, allows Rice to back up a new number 6, and your midfield from there would be okay, I think. Only my opinion, but where are you with Diamande on his kind of future? And again, by the way, if somebody chucked 12 million at me, you know, I would reconsider if Everton come in, English Premiership tax, etc. But realistically, I would be quite happy for Mohamed Diamande to play another year at Rangers and try and develop into the kind of consistency that Nico Raskin's hit in the last 6 months.
Yeah, I have very little issue with Mohamed Diamande. I think he was a good pick. I think from that area, I think from Nordjylland, I think that's another avenue we should be looking at, the Danish league, similar to, you know, the boy at Westerlo, the striker. I think the Belgian league's a good place to be looking at for these player profiles, for the model that we want to adapt to. I think you're right. I don't think if you were to play him in 7 games, I don't think you'd be a star in 7 games. You might be outstanding in 3 or 4 of them, but I think in those other 3, you might have had it. You go, oh, Dia wasn't at his best today. Coincidentally, I think in those games where he looks brilliant, it's the European games, which I think says more about, you know, the league we play
I
in.
think he's been excellent in Celtic games as well. It's the non-physical ones that he turns up in, and he produces really good football.
Yeah, I think that you're right. The Parkhead game, him and Nico and Dio worked particularly well in that game. I think that was one of the better, you know, midfield marshalling performances I can think of in Old Firms, where the midfield battle is so important as we've seen through the recent seasons. I have no issues with Dio's in the teams this season. I think it's another year for him to develop, another crack at Europe. It's going to be good business for us, because I doubt he's going to drop in price. I think he's a really solid player who can continue to grow. I don't think he'll stagnate. I think he's a player I think the new manager will like. So I have no issues. But as you said, if there is a nice amount of money, we have to sell. This is where we are. If the price is right, then we sell. It's going to be like we are the prices right now. But yeah, Dio, if he's to stay, Dio, Raskin, and Barron, 3 midfielders I'm really happy with. I think you can build off that, you can branch off that. I think he's talking about having strong bonds in the pitch. I think the 3 of them work well. If you're going to chuck it about, then sure. I don't think Barron did himself any injustices this season. I think he did well stepping in from Aberdeen. Nico, when he found his feet, was superb, and he's rightly getting a lot of discussion in the European level. Dio, if he can just take a next step and take a consistency to the game, then that's rocket fuel for the boy, and we'll be all the better for it financially.
I would really hope that with a manager with a clear structure and a clear ideology of what he wants to do, which Russell Martin does have, I would hope that Diamande, Raskin, with better players around them, which hopefully we will have, because let's not try and kind of sugarcoat this. We haven't played with a left winger since God knows when properly. I can't remember the last time we had a good left winger. Certainly not this season. Czerny has at times carried the team as much as Cyril Dessers has, but we need goals and things that come in from everywhere. Of course, Lyle Cameron's coming. I'm trying not to put too much pressure on the lad before that. Or before him coming, I would like him to find his feet and come in. A few questions about, you know, players that were potentially coming in. Young boy Kamara from PSG, Burgess, Milligan. These were all deals that Rangers Review and things reported as being really, really close. They seem to have gone to the wayside, because even Rangers Review are saying tonight that these deals look to have been plugged and pulled. So that's really interesting, because that tells me that I think we've maybe changed our tactics this summer. It might have been in a case of, well, we might have to get a few in for the squad. These are the ones that are available, and this might have changed it. So with them now apparently being off, that's an interesting one. I did want to bring up, thanks to Stuart Grant for the super sticker, the £3 donation. We really appreciate that. It's not something that I say is something we ask for or anything, but the support is really, really appreciated. So we really thank you. I did get a question up here as well, which I want to bring up as well. What is Dio's best position? I think, only my opinion, Dio's best position is left of a midfield three, where he can get forward and with a proper structure. Now, I really think, and again, only opinion, that Raskin and Diamandi, and I'm not saying that Diamandi should play every week, because I do think he needs to find that consistent level. Nico Raskin should, if he stays. I would love Nico Raskin to get a new contract. That's the whole point. But I really think with a good number 6 behind them, they could flourish. Andrew Kenny, do you have any kind of thoughts on where his best position is? But if we've got the old kind of style 3 sitting in Diamandi as a box-to-box, Raskin box-to-box, not every week. I would like competition, obviously, for Diamandi. That's what I've said. But I think that's where he could thrive on Russell Martin's system. High press, lots of attacking football.
Totally agree. That is probably where his best position is. If you're playing with 6 and 2 8s on the left-hand side, he reminds me, I've said it since he came here, he reminds me of Glenn Kamara, but with more potential and slightly more attacking, but a similar type of player. And yeah, that's where I would play him. If you're playing with 3 midfield, then that's exactly where I'm playing him. If you're playing him with 4, I thought he was potentially a 10. I thought you could play him as a 10. We tried that last season, and I don't know if it was maybe just the shape that we were playing at the time that didn't really work for him, but it didn't come across well as a 10, did he? I don't think he's a 6. So yeah, naturally left-sided, naturally on the left-hand side of a 3 for me.
Andrew? Kelso makes a good point here. Playing wide left in a 3-4-3 position, was previous club is outstanding, got a brilliant engine. I really like his engine, and I think he can, in a system where he's got better players around him in a proper kind of formation and things like that. I think he could thrive. I don't think he works as a 2 in Scotland. I think sometimes he can go overrun. That inconsistency lets him down as well. He does need to get better. That's why I would like to see a challenge in for him and another player there, Andrew. But what's your thoughts on him?
I think you're spot on. I think Kenny's spot on. I think also, as Kelso said, bringing that up, that he can play there and he has played there. I think having that versatility certainly helps when you're as injury prone as we have been. Players that can fill in gaps is always useful to have. I wouldn't have him sitting there regularly. I think, as you said, that left side with Nico and a proper sitter behind him, I think with that engine, as again, as Kelso said, he has that work rate, he's got good athleticism. The key word for me today has been athleticism, but he has it. He covers a lot of yards when he feels like it. In those battles in Old Firms, you see him, he hunts down the ball, he covers yards. If we can get that deal consistently, it could be key for the way we want to play this season, like the cross. If we can get it from Dundee to Dortmund or wherever we play in Europe, then we're on to a winner. It's just having that, because that consistency. Because as we said, in those games where he gets overrun that we've seen this season, the head goes down a bit for him, I think. And I think he just, if we can get it working and getting him happy and getting him confident in his game, then I think we've got a solid winner there.
I think definitely he is one that could benefit with better players around him. I can't remember the last time that we had threats from our team that weren't just on one area. I can't remember. Even when Ryan Kent was here, I don't remember there being anybody on the right. And that's been a problem for quite a while. If Russell Martin is going to succeed and play the way he wants to, he needs to have the correct tools. And we can't have Nadeem Barami playing wide left or wide right or whatever. And it just doesn't work. He doesn't have I don't think he has the attitude for it, or he certainly hasn't shown the attitude for it for me. So there's a lot of variables for Russell Martin to be successful. We really need to get players in the door. I would love to watch a Rangers team that just had. I like his ideas. I do. I like his ideas, but it's not going to succeed with this squad. That's my biggest fear about Russell Martin. So if it's going to succeed, then we need to get quick sharp in and get the players in that he wants, and that is, a 6 is vital. Centre halves is vital. Wingers is non-negotiable. That's why I was saying you can maybe get away with starting with Butland and Dessers and John Suter and and Jeffy and things like that, because there's urgent positions. We don't have wingers to play his system. We don't have a 6 to play his system. John Souttar needs a partner in there at the very minimum. So I think there is urgent things to go through. What I would like to do is just thank Gordon Lockhart as well for becoming a YouTube member. We really appreciate that. Loads of comments coming in. There was a question here as well from Day in a Life. What formation would you lads play? 4-3-3 for me. The way Russell Martin describes it and the way he talks about it, the 4 at the back, 2 bombing on full-backs, a sitting 6, 2 box-to-box attacking midfielders, 2 wide wingers and a 9 that presses and hunts, and we push on. I am willing to let Russell Martin have a shot at that, and let's see how he gets on. I don't have any issues with him doing that. Boys, do you get any other I know he's changed his formation quite a lot. He talked about when he went to Man City and he went to, I don't know if you've seen the Gary Lineker interview with him, which I found really interesting on Russell Martin, especially his upbringing. He talks about how he changed it and he doesn't really want to do that again. He wants to stick to the same kind of thing. So I think 4-3-3 is really similar to how it worked under Steven Gerrard. Even though on the right-hand side we had guys like Joe Aribo and things play out there, I would love to see 2 free-flowing attacking wingers go and have a go at that formation. Andrew Kenny, have you got any kind of different ideas?
I think, as you said, it's quite similar to the Gerrard style, that victorious Gerrard style. You have to supply him with the wingers. I think it's, as you've said, that's the key to do that. I mean, you have a left winger that's on the bench for Wales tonight, but that's the less said about that, the better, in your opinions. Just wanted to let you say that. Just so much talk about not having a left winger this season, and you loaned one out in January. I think I like the way he discusses his tactics. I have a lot of faith in his system, whatever he chooses. He's won me over quite quickly, which I tried not to. I really tried to not do the usual fall over and just go, he's a Rangers manager, and get behind him, because I was so far in the Ancelotti hype train. I was so far, I had my ticket booked. I was sitting front row in the hype train, but I went, let's give him his time. I think I can't believe there's still people that are unhappy and quote gonna boycott and so on. I don't buy that at all. But I didn't want to give him it straight away. I listened to a lot of his media and so on. Watched some Southampton games start to finish and just observed, and he's changed my mind. So I'll be avidly checking out what he decides is his best play in terms of formation, and I'll get right behind him.
Kenny?
I'd be stunned if he played anything other than a 4-3-3. I think he might chop and change every now and again, play with 3 at the back, probably 3-4-3. But only for certain games or in certain, circumstances during games. But that when you've listened to him, I know you boys are the same. That I actually just found the way he talked about football and the way that he was presenting what he wanted to do, it's ultra attacking football. It's almost going to be, as you said earlier on, Andrew, that you're going to have 2 centre halves. You're going to have those 2 fullbacks bombing forward, and that holding midfield is almost going to be a 4, not even a 6. He's going to play as a 4. He's going to play right in front, almost like a sweeper, which is really interesting because it's kind of gung ho, and it's perhaps the reason why when you look at the stats on Russell Martin's teams, they concede plenty of goals. So if you can rectify that up here, where we're going to really properly dominate the ball and get a solid back line in place, then I'm actually really quite excited about watching his team for next season. I think that will be really, really entertaining. But I don't see it being anything other than a 4-3-3, Stevie, because it's kind of, he's already talked about it, hasn't he? And it's kind of what he said that he's going to do. So, but slightly different from Steven Gerrard's 4-3-3, as I say, where that holding midfielder, if you like, is going to play almost when they go forward. He's going to sit even deeper, and the rest of them are going to be really quite far forward. So There'll be times when it's been a real issue for us at times, Stevie, when you watch us. Philip Clement had it. Barry tried to change it and managed up to a point, but there was. I'd expect when we're attacking, you'll see 7 and 8 of our players run about from 20 yards towards the opponent's goal. I think we will be that far forward. We will really try and pen them in, and I'm quite looking forward to it because of the shape that he plays and the system that he's wanting to play.
Haggis Killer asks, we'll do a quick couple of questions and we'll call it a night because it has been over an hour. I do not want to bore people. We're linked with 100 players this summer. 10% will be real, yeah, probably. Of the rumours so far, who excites you? Very quickly, Israeli striker Turgeman, Poku of Peterborough, I think I quite like the idea of. And I'm going to say as a wild card outside Toffolo at left back. And the reason I say that is because in every successful Rangers team, there has to be hard-working, workman-like guys that play 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, or 6 out of 10, just standard every single week, sometimes excelling, but never peaking too low. And I think that Harry Toffolo coming in at left back could be one of these guys. It would allow Jeffy, he's experienced, it would allow Jeffy to have a lot of time as well. I'm not saying he's going to sign, that's not the thing, but I would quite like a few sensible signings like that could bolster the team and bolster the squad. So that's just my tuppence worth of, and the Toffolo one's a wee bit of an outside kind of wild card bet. Andrew, quickly, Kenny, quickly, anybody that you boys who are interested in that have been linked?
Conor Cody, for his leadership more than anything else. I know a lot of folk won't be particularly enamoured with that kind of signing, but by goodness, he'll be better than anything we've had on the left side for a long, long time of those centre halves, and he will. But for more, as I say, for his leadership quality, Stevie, I think we sadly lack a dominant figure on the pitch, and we've lacked it for a long, long time. And he is that guy. So for that reason alone, that quite interests me, and I'd like to see that happen actually, because I think you do really, really well up here. Famous last words.
Andrew?
I said to you before, I'd give an arm, a couple of working toes, a kidney, potentially even a lung to get Flynn Downs to Ibrox. I think he could be just one of these players that the manager can rely on. I'd really love to see it happen. I doubt it will. In that case, I'd like us to go in for the Pizarro, because nothing to spring. I'd like to see a Arturo Vidal kind of regen, kind of arrive at Ibrox. That would add a wee bit of firiness to our team. That would be quite interesting. But I think the profiles so far for names linked that look like at least there is some sort of smoke to them. I'm liking so far. That's the main thing for me.
Final question of the night. Thanks for everybody that has commented. I've tried to kind of pick out everyone's comments and stuff. We really appreciate it. But Davey H asks, any idea of Suter has signed a new contract, only centre half worth keeping? I think he's probably the only centre half we've got at this rate. What I would say is, a couple of months ago, back in I think March time, there was very strong rumours that John Suter had agreed and was about to sign a new contract, and that very quickly went quiet when everything happened with Barry coming in, with the takeover then ramping up and new things happening. So the honest truth is there's nothing official about John Suter at all, and we will most likely find out whether or not it's agreed, and in the background it's just things getting signed off. That's the official kind of situation with it. I've spoken about John Suter before. I think John Suter had a really poor season last season. I think he started off well but gradually got worse. The fact that the goalkeeper was a really bad situation and he never really had a proper defensive partner, I don't think helped him at all. He needs a proper partner, in my opinion. But obviously, you would keep him as part of the squad. He could do experience and things around him. Yep, absolutely. But John Suter has to have a better season. And I think maybe he would even say that as well. He was culpable for quite a few goals, John Suter. And if Connor Goldson had made the level of mistakes that John Suter was for those 5-6 weeks that he was doing it, he would have been taken to the absolute cleaner. So Yep, I would like him to stay, but I'm not necessarily saying he's part of my first team. So that's only again, it's only my opinion, and that means very little. We all have different ones. Boys, quickly on John Souttar.
So yes for me. I like John Souttar. I do agree with you, though. I don't think he had the most consistent season last season. But our back four, our back five was a complete shambles. I don't think he was the worst in it. But I'd keep him. But I do understand what you mean. I think he's a very, very good squad player to have. He's Scottish. Has he got a mistake in him? Absolutely. But I'd be keeping him, mate. Yeah. Because if we don't, it might be the only one. There might be nobody in the entire back line that would be there from last season, just for a little bit of continuity. And he's Scottish.
Andrew, he cannot just he's actually very good on the ball. He's had a few moments where he's made a mess, but overall, I think John Souttar, he's also a different kind of, he's like a siege defender. So would that suit, there's a lot of things to maybe consider, but you would definitely keep him.
Yeah, I have no issue with John Souttar. I know it was a very difficult season defensively for us. I think also you talk about the fact he get chucked around quite a lot with, he was left side for some games and he was right side. Left back constantly changed. Right back was, I'll leave it there. But in the goalie behind you, and it's similar to, I think that when there's so much change and as soon as the heads go down, that breeds just that lack of confidence in themselves. I'd said it with McGregor in his last season. I think the defensive front of him was shaky. I think that was a mixture of Goldson maybe wanting to be going somewhere else and Souttar maybe not ready to take that first centre back position off him and throwing everything with Borna wanting to leave, Tav being Tav. I thought Allen looked shaky, and if you can make McGregor look shaky, then you're doing something incredibly wrong. A clean slate. I think this summer to clear his head. I'd be happy for Souttar to come back. Absolutely no problem with me. He can do the siege stuff. I think on his day when he gets his head down, he can be a ball playing centre back. I think we brought in Proper to try and do that, and that was awful. I remember watching that in the first game because somebody had said to me he was left-footed before I'd sat down and watched him, and he did. He wasn't, and it looked like he hadn't played with his left foot in his life. So for a left-sided centre half to be like that was terrifying to watch. So I think a clean slate, take the summer off, John, and come back. I think we'll see him back to the Souttar that we know he can be.
Let's hope so. Ladies and gentlemen, let's end it there tonight. We've been on nearly an hour and 10 minutes. There's almost 4,000 people watching across all platforms, including Facebook, YouTube, X, all of your social media. And we really, really appreciate all your support you've given us. Thanks to all our YouTube members who pay to support the podcast, who are helping us do things. You can have access to interviews. There's interviews with Derek Ferguson talking about David Cooper. There's interviews with Stevie Smith and Bob Malcolm talking about the Helicopter Sunday season. There's documentaries on there about Helicopter Sunday and David Cooper. And there's also a feature-length interview with Stephen Naismith, which is grabbed some of the attention, that's for sure. It is available to watch. You can join our YouTube membership at any point for as little as 99p. We really appreciate that. Kenny and I are going to be back on Wednesday. Might be joined, if any of the folks, depending on how they feel, come on with us, they might join us. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. We're now chasing the hunt for 8,000 subs, and we really, really, really appreciate that. If you haven't subbed, it's free to do so. It'll let you know when all our shows are on, and we would appreciate if you could join us. Thank you, Kenny, for joining us, mate. We really appreciate it.
No, thoroughly enjoyed that. Good fun. And on to Wednesday now. More rumours. See what's going to happen.
Absolutely. Andrew, thank you for joining us, mate. You were a late addition and a really welcome one. Thank you, mate.
90 plus 5, you know I'd come through. Yeah, great to be on again. Good chat as always. See if I can catch him this Belgium game and hope Nico comes off the bench. So, yep.
How have you never seen John Wick till last night, mate?
That's a fair point.
How have you never seen it?
That's a fair point. Because I listened to you this morning. Honestly, I was mind blown.
Listen, it was really traumatic when they killed his dog right at the start. had to grab my dog and get a wee hug. What I would say, Bluebells, is massive supporter of the podcast. Ask for Marco Negri. You ask, and we will see what we can do. That's all I'll say on that. I've asked a lot of people who would like to sit down and do the next feature length. So hopefully we'll bring you more. I would like to do one every couple of months. Not overkill. I like to do one every couple of months and do things that haven't been asked and done before. So you ask for Negri. Let's see what we can do on that. Bluebells, you're a massive supporter of the pod, and we really appreciate it. So you ask, we'll see what we can do. Everybody else, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for all your support of the podcast. Huge thank you to Rhino Express, Clydeview, Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions, CSD Air Conditioning, and our partners, Black Rooster and Art of Gold. Really appreciate all the sponsor support financially and just being able to do what we do on this podcast. They provide everything for us, and we really appreciate it. So thank you, everyone. Guys, have a great Monday. Enjoy the football tonight, everybody who's going to watch. Enjoy your Tuesday. We'll be back Wednesday. Be sure to join us. We really appreciate everything that you do and all your support. Have a great week. Take care, folks. Catch you all again soon.
The Four Lads podcast is sponsored by Rhino Express, Clydeview Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions Limited, and CSD Air Conditioning, in partnership with Black Rooster and Art of Gold. Thank you for listening to or watching the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show.